So I'll probably work my way up to some of the darker stuff. I'm just going to start off with some of the basics.
And so listen, the other thing is we're going to keep it to about 30 minutes. So Jill,
Okay.
if you would keep track of the time.
Okay, okay,
And then
okay.
come on over here and give her like heads up. We'll give you 5-minute
Okay,
warning.
okay.
So that you have enough time to wrap everything up. You know your time is winding down and you'll be done. When you're done, we'll cut. You can come off, the next person can come on, and we'll just keep rolling as we're able. And then when all the work is done, right? Then we can play around, take some pictures, have some fun while everything is set up. And then, you know.
Hi, my name is Alana Kyle, and I'm from Pacifica, California. I have Morgellons. I have been studying this disease for 6 years. I find it very complex and very difficult to talk about. There's not a lot of information online about it. So I've been forced to do a lot of my own studying and my own research. So I would like to share some of that with you in hopes that it will help you if it's a disease that you think you have. At the very least, you'll get some more information about what some of the signs and symptoms are and perhaps some really good treatment options that I have found helpful. So I wanted to go ahead and share some of this with you. So I've been studying this for the last 6 years. That's how long I knew I had the disease. As soon as I figured out that I had it, I was very desperate to find some answers because I really needed to treat it. It was really causing me a lot of pain. I did see doctors for various ailments, but I never really understood how they all interrelated and interconnected. So therefore, I continued to suffer from various illnesses that actually I'd had for at least 30 years.
Cut. 1 second. So do we
Okay.
have to address that situation? The backdrop.
The
Backdrop
backdrop fell.
Oh, it fell.
I knew that was going to happen. I saw it before.
Anything you're ready.
So as far as Morgellons is concerned, when a person goes to the doctor to say, hey, look, I may have a case of Morgellons, what do you think? A lot of times the doctors will say that you actually have delusions of parasitosis, and that's their standard answer for the signs and symptoms that Morgellons sufferers have. I don't agree with that conclusion. I think that it's pretty much negating the patient's experience right off the gate, and it makes them feel unheard and unseen. And also it is inaccurate. It doesn't really help either to be considered delusional when you have actual facts and figures. I mean, facts, you actually have samples to show of what is coming out of your body. And I'm going to describe that more in detail in a minute. But so the challenge is that we have a lot of undeniable symptoms as Morgellons patients that are common across sufferers from California to Florida to Scotland and the UK. I mean, we find Morgellons patients all over the world. The symptoms are identical. So some of the symptoms might be itching and crawling under the skin, scalp, and ears, insect bites and sensation of bites, white particles coming out of the skin pores and scalp. That's very common. Single filaments that come out of the skin that may look like carpet lint, bundles of fibers coming out of the skin, small red spots, new moles and pimples, blackheads, enlarged pores and greasy skin, open sores that don't scab over properly, and if they do heal, skin eventually loses pigment. So often we have lots of white scarring in the areas where there might have been a sore or one of those bumps. Insects troubling skin and hair follicles, stinging, shooting pain, often in fingers and feet, and a feeling that skin is not clean even after a bath. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. This is just the beginning. I find that Morgellons has affected me in a neurological way, and that's a much bigger problem because that affects your lifestyle. It affects being able to work, have relationships, being able to just do the most basic of tasks. That is one of the worst problems I have found in Morgellons, which I'll go into a little deeply because I'm going to explain my history. So sometimes the symptoms may look like other diseases, and this is where a lot of people get confused. Because, say, the brain fog that you may experience may look like Alzheimer's, or the digestive issues may look like IBS, or the sores and rashes could be eczema. But when you examine the strange sores and the strange rainbow-colored fibers and debris that are coming out of the sores, it becomes undeniable that something much deeper is happening. I've had an extreme case of eczema on my hands for 30 years, and it was very debilitating, and the pain would wake me up every night. Once I realized I had Morgellons, treatment options were available, though others who had found remedies to address Morgellons symptoms. I was then able to completely heal the eczema for the first time, and that led me to believe that it wasn't actually eczema that I had, but Morgellons. And that was a big relief to not have that problem anymore. This disease, though, has affected me in every level of my being. It has affected me physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It's one of the worst things that could happen to a person, and I have nothing but sympathy for others who experience the same things. It caused a severe case of depression for me, lasting over 7 years. Neurological effects included brain fog, loss of fine motor skills, Alzheimer's symptoms, such as short-term memory loss, and trouble speaking and walking. My digestion was very poor. I wasn't able to absorb nutrients. I had diarrhea, stomach aches, and severe bloating. I had sinus issues, teeth issues, severe joint pain, emotional outbursts, and suicidal thoughts. And I was having trouble coping with day-to-day stresses. And the worst was when I realized I had lost contact with my soul. I felt numb, and I couldn't remember what used to make me happy. I had to quit working. I just couldn't deal with any kind of stress in my life. I'm happy to say that that's not the case now. And through some of the protocols that I'm going to explain, I was able to affect my condition, and I was able to reverse the neurological damage. And that is what I want to share today.
Cut, that's
Okay.
good.
Okay, so now I'm going to go into some of the protocols that have helped me overcome Morgellons symptoms. It may sound complicated, but really it can be quite simple. It has to do with using the protocols in a certain order, because if they get out of order, things can go wrong. Like, first we start with energy clearing. And energy clearing is a very effective method of dealing with opening up detox pathways, clearing emotional problems, clearing for frequencies that may have been missing that have caused an autoimmune response in your body that have triggered an opening for Morgellons. And this is a wonderful protocol that I highly recommend. Go to the Energy Clearing Protocol on Facebook and go through the steps. It's very simple. That would be the first step. The second step is to address heavy metals. Most of Morgellons has to do with heavy metals, including fibers. There are a bombardment of heavy metals in our environment, and that is one of the major issues that needs to be addressed first. the thing that was really hard for me was that I had mercury toxicity since the time I was 2. And that set me up for a host of other problems going down the line as I got older. I had various mercury exposures that added up that destroyed my immune system and weakened my body. And then I was exposed to Morgellons, which took hold. And it turns out that I found out that the parasites and Morgellons actually thrive on metals. So it makes sense that they kind of go hand in hand, the metals and the parasites and Morgellons. So the first thing to do would be to address metals with a heavy metal detox program. Some of the effects of metals in your body include cancer, Alzheimer's, destruction of the immune system, and neurological damage. So it's a very serious problem.
Cut.
Yes.
We have to address it. Also, you can be happy. You don't have to be sad.
Okay.
You know?
The next thing that I did in terms of protocols that were really effective was to treat the disease internally. Many times we end up doing external things to deal with symptoms that are very harsh and debilitating, and that's important too. However, the internal treatments are very, very important. Otherwise, if you don't treat internally, you're just going to keep ending up with more and more things to treat externally. So they kind of go in hand, the internal treatments and the external treatments. We are full of toxic debris inside of our bodies, and because you can't see that, it ends up really affecting you. And sometimes we don't even have the tests to find out how toxic we really are. I think we should just all assume that we are extremely toxic and to take that very seriously and not to ignore the signs and symptoms that happened on the surface. So my first 4 years of treating Morgellons was a bit of a mistake because I ended up spending a lot more time on external treatments than internal treatments. When I found the energy clearing protocol, it kind of turned everything around because I started doing the internal treatments. That's an internal treatment. And that was a huge head start for me that actually turned everything around. I started getting much, much better 2 years ago. So the internal treatments that I would recommend other than energy clearing have to do with melting biofilm inside the body that the Morgellons creatures live in. A lot of other parasites also thrive in this biomatrix that's growing inside of our bodies, and it acts kind of in a stealthy way where it tricks your immune system. Okay, we
You can
stop
start
it.
that all again. 'Cause-
Okay, what happened?
Well, at 5 minutes, she told me to do 5 minutes when you have about 5 minutes to wrap it up.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Here we
Right,
go.
but
Here we
The
go.
whole door situation was not that kind of messed up the sound too.
So should I do something over again? What do I need to do over?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Okay,
I
okay,
just- I was
okay.
I was trying to just do the 5
Okay.
minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
We can come back.
Okay.
What about saying something about, like right there, being targeted?
I don't want
That
to.
Some people get.
I don't want to talk about the
Sounds
targeting till
people
later.
don't.
I'll do that one later. Okay. So some of the treatments to melt the biofilm would be Cistus incantus tea, Alinea, which is a supplement. Borax is a very helpful item to help with the biofilm, and sodium thiosulfate. This is another incredibly valuable internal treatment that works. DMSO and MSM, and those are sulfur-based items which actually are incredibly powerful that I found have worked tremendously for myself. The next step would be to use DMSO externally to treat sores and handle pain. And it works to clear out the deeper levels of your skin where the Morgellons set up a matrix of fibers. and it melts the biofilm that's on the surface of your skin, and that's also helpful because a lot of the fibers are hard to get off your skin because they're embedded in this matrix. The next step would be to use what I call Miracle Mix, which is a combination that is a homemade recipe of borax, DE, castor oil, magnesium oil, oregano oil, arnica oil. These are all useful in a combination that is very, very, very powerful to help clear up the sores. And some of the other things that I do that are incredibly useful is to use sulfur soap. This is also good on a daily basis to use in the shower. I use MSM regularly as a supplement. DMSO and sodium thiosulfate and Epsom salts. That's something that can be done in a protocol that would definitely help overall to reduce symptoms. The next thing that I use is a thing called Calogel, and that can be used anywhere, and it's extremely helpful for pain and for melting biofilm layers and clearing sores. A lot of people use baths. There's various baths that you can do, but I always have some salts in there, either Epsom salts, borax, or baking soda, or a combination. And then the last thing you do is a parasite cleanse. After all the other things are done, you don't want to do a parasite cleanse in the beginning because that would cause a lot of trouble for your body. You need to end your treatments with a parasite cleanse. Thank you.
Hot.
Yes.
Okay.
Anytime you're ready.
When I first learned about Morgellons and when I found out that I may have had it, I was a little incredulous. I really had a hard time thinking that I had something so strange and so bizarre. You know, I had lived pretty much a normal life up to, 6 years ago. Raising kids, having a career, having a husband, and, normal things to fill my time. And then when I discovered I had Morgellons, everything got flipped on its head, and my life got turned upside down. It kind of affected, it very much affected my relationship with my family and my husband and my kids. They got very freaked out by the change of personality that ended up happening as I was desperate to find answers and to find cures or treatments that would take away some of the debilitating symptoms that were affecting my everyday life. The symptoms were bizarre. It's hard to talk about because there's really not a lot of language that would be accurate to describe the kind of sensations and the experiences and the ways that it completely takes you over. You're not able to live a normal life anymore because your whole life is focused on getting rid of this thing, getting it out of your body, getting it out of your home. When I first found out about it and I acknowledged that I had it, I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of the floor. I was afraid of my clothes, my bed, my towels. Everything was fearful to me because I knew these Morgellons creatures were sitting right there on these surfaces, and not only inside my body, but also everywhere outside my body. So it took a little while for me to feel normal or to get back to my normal life, because at first there was just this panic and dread about life in general. My symptoms got way, way worse very quickly, where I ended up with rashes in various places all over my body. My hair started falling out. I had teeth issues that were really very costly to deal with. Again, the neurological problems, I think, were the worst, where it affected my relationships. It affected my husband and our marriage, I mean, he thought I was absolutely nuts. And I'm sure most Morgellons sufferers would say they probably went through similar things, where you try to explain to your loved one how you feel and you're in pain and you're suffering, and all they can say is, well, why don't you go to a doctor? And why don't you get help? Why don't you get help? And that's kind of where the problem is. If you went to a doctor, they would immediately diagnose you with delusions of parasitosis, which is inaccurate. So you're not really going to get the help you need if you see a doctor. So it feels very lonely, and it feels really devastating that no one in your world, the world that you have built, no one in your world understands what you're going through, can help you, and on top of it, they think you're crazy, and they actually say that. And so that's where the pain is for me. That is the biggest issue of all, is being invisible in so many ways, and having some trauma happen to you that no one can help you with. The only people that have been able to help me are the friends that I found actually online on Facebook groups. Some of those groups I would like to share is the Energy Clearing Protocol on Facebook, the Finding Hope with Morgellons Facebook group, and the Morgellons and Open Forum. They're filled with people that understand, that have wonderful protocols, that are doing amazing research and helping just so that you don't feel so alone. That I think that alone is very healing, to be with people that actually can understand your feelings and be compassionate. I mean, even though people think they're being compassionate by saying, well, why don't you get help? And I mean, and on the one hand, you know, of course, I want to believe that people want me to feel better, and they do, but it's not helpful for me to be just told, well, it's all in your head, or, you know, why don't you just relax, or, you know, why don't you go see a doctor and get the medicine you need, or those kinds of things don't really help. They actually just make me feel worse. And it's been a very long road, a very long journey, but I'm happy to say that I am better, and I am feeling like there is hope, and I want to share that with others, that there are ways to overcome many of the symptoms and to build up your body, build up your immune system, kick this stuff out, detox. It's all about detox. And, you know, building a support network. I think that's one of the most important things I can describe is that is what has helped me the most, is the support network that if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have survived. I want to say thank you to all those people who are my friends that helped me through the most dramatic time of my life.
Cut. Beautiful.
Hello, my name is Kandy Griffin Vandawalker, and many years ago, okay, start over. Ready?
Look here. When you introduce yourself, look.
Oh, look here, okay. At the camera? Okay. Hello, my name is Kandy Griffin Vandawalker, and many years ago I became afflicted with several symptoms of what we have come to know and call Morgellons, Morgellons syndrome, Morgellons disease. We call it by many different names because we're really unsure of what it is. My first symptoms began with facial lesions that I began at the age of 23 years old, which is a classic Morgellons symptom. And it happened after I started receiving a series of hepatitis B vaccines that I was required to have for my new job position as a brand new graduated nurse. For several years, I continued to get my flu shot. I was a young, indoctrinated nurse, indoctrinated into the medical system, and truly believing that I was doing the right thing for humanity. And one year, I received a flu shot that didn't take properly in my body, and it triggered several days of severe illness. And after that, I never truly recovered, and over time, I became sicker and sicker and sicker. So I was misdiagnosed several times with many different illnesses. I did some of my own research, and I'm moving. Okay, sorry. Should I just start over? I'm very nervous, so I'm just... Okay, I did that at Adams too. I was rocking in the chair.
Just backtrack a little bit and we can.
I forgot where I was
Hepatitis
though.
B.
So after I received this series of hepatitis B vaccines, I began the facial lesions, which is a classic sign of the Morgellons issue. So then I had a flu shot that didn't really take properly in my body, and it triggered several days of severe illness and distress in my body, high fevers and hallucination, and all kinds of things that I suffered. After that, I never truly recovered, and over the years, I just became sicker and sicker and sicker as the time went on. So I was misdiagnosed with several different things. I did my own research and had determined that I was, in fact, dealing with what we call myalgic encephalomyelitis and fibromyalgia. And so I went to a medical doctor who did all kinds of testing and came back to me, in fact, and said, yes, this is what is wrong with you. In our country, we call it chronic fatigue syndrome. So I went back online and I was asking for help if anyone could help me. And in the meantime, I had found myself in the darkest place of my life. I knew that I was going to die. This disease process, whatever it was ravaging my body, and I wasn't going to survive it. I was misdiagnosed even up to and including carcinoid cancer, which in fact I did not have. And after returning home from the cancer center and them telling me I did not have cancer, I was literally in a state of shock. And I found myself in the darkest moment of my life. And I truly did not know what to do. And in that darkest moment, I literally made the sign of the cross, and I asked God on a one-to-one level to spare my life. I begged him not to let me die, that I was 38 years old. I was not ready to leave here, and I just really, really wanted to stay. And the next day is when I found the information on the diagnoses of the chronic fatigue and fibro. And then I asked for help, and lo and behold, someone told me about this form of energy medicine, which is a combination of quantum physics, scientific information, informing us how the world truly works in scientific terms, combined with the ancient form of acupressure. So I will talk about that more on another shoot here. We will discuss the energy clearing protocol at another time. However, it is the thing that saved my life from Morgellons. There are multiple forms of energy medicine. There is NAET, there is Bioset, there is Jeffrey Mahler technique. There's all kinds of different forms of energy medicine available across the country. There is also my free energy clearing protocol on Facebook that you can do for yourself, by yourself. You can do it for other people, to other people. It is a very simplified process, and as you will hear from other people, it truly does work. So I became a self-inflicted Morgellons researcher after 4 years of suffering horrifying symptoms that most people cannot even comprehend. When I tell you that I had brain fog, it encompassed all 10 signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease at the age of 38 years old. I was forgetting to flush my toilet. I was forgetting to close the front door. I was forgetting to close the refrigerator door. These are things that we don't even think about doing in our lives. It is just second nature. And I was literally forgetting to do those things. I could not concentrate. I could not comprehend. There were days that I literally could not speak. I had fatigue to the point that I would sleep sometimes 16 hours a day and wake up and feel like I had never slept a wink. I had joint pain so badly and had become so obese at the height of my illness. I believed I weighed close to 300 pounds. And the body weight could not be supported by my joints due to the secondary pain that I was experiencing. So I was a slave to my sofa. I could not get off my couch some days. There were multiple things that I endured. I would also have these terrible, what I called spells. And I would start with severe cramping in my abdomen and severe explosive diarrhea. And then everything from here up on my body would dilate at the same time, and it's called facial and upper body flushing. And I experienced wet flushing, which means you are pouring sweat. As you are dilating, your blood pressure is literally dropping. You feel as if you are just about to pass out, and instead I would get hit with a huge wave of nausea, and I would start projectile vomiting. And that was my spell. And I suffered those for over 4 years of my life, and sometimes up to 10 times daily. It was a horrifying way to survive and live. I was literally a shell of my former self. I felt like I had become unplugged or disconnected from my soul somehow, my spirit. I wasn't resonating. I didn't have vibration to me. I wasn't my happy-go-lucky self. I had become what I had termed a Morgellons monster, because I truly felt that that was what was doing this to my body. So then I move into the work of Mr. Harold Kautzvella, and I find work from him. And he starts discussing the spiritual realm. And so quickly I delved into that material and realized that everything Mr. Kautzvella speaks of in his work directly mirrors my own personal experience as a human being. I literally had black tar-like material seeping from the bottom of my feet at the height of my illness. I had no concept what it was. There was no information on what it was. So I found the information by him. I started following his work. He actually contacted me. We worked together here in New York in 2017, and that work is available under Quantum Resonance channel on YouTube if you're interested in seeing any of that material. So lo and behold, I had found a practitioner of this energy medicine. Within 3 months, he resolved over 70 symptoms in my body. And within 8 months span, I lost 60 pounds of weight, which I'm sure was toxicity from the Morgellons issue. I wasn't dealing with many organs or glands or systems in my body that were working properly. I was only getting 20% of nutrition from everything I was eating because I was literally sensitive or missing the frequency for 80% of the foods that I was consuming. And I was literally wasting away and dying. So lo and behold, this practitioner literally saved my life with this form of energy medicine. And if you have the ability or the opportunity to ever become a patient of a practitioner who practices these energy medicine treatments, I suggest that you do that, or as I say before, you join the energy clearing protocol and do it for yourself. It does work. So there are many different realms to the Morgellons issue. It does affect everyone on every single aspect of their life. It affects us physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually. And the spiritual issue is something that needs to be discussed. It is very much impacting our physical realm, and it is one of the things that we ignore, that we fail to address, or that we fail to educate ourselves on. So in another time, we'll go deeper into these subjects as we go along here in these presentations to bring this information to you and to help you understand that you are not alone. There's a whole army of people out here on this planet who are experiencing exactly what you are experiencing. This is spiritual warfare to some degree. We are talking about a fight for the human soul. We are also talking about transhumanism and the singularity and the man-machine interface and the attempt to assault and attack God's carbon-based creation and turn it into a silicon-based life form. And this is where we are heading. This is the materials that are coming from the human body are connected to DARPA, mold ice, programmable matter, along with a fungus carrying a secondary genetic cluster, which may be bacterial, viral, fungal, parasitic, mold, worm, insect, plant, or any other species that exists on the planet. Therefore, we have Morgellons sufferers who are experiencing things unlike the planet has ever witnessed since the beginning of time. I literally have been contacted with people who have insects and insect parts growing from their bodies. People who have plant material and fungus material growing from the surface of their skin. People pulling crystal hexagons and all kinds of colored fibers and all kinds of what appear to be nano implants or biomems or bionems. So we're talking about Morgellons as an umbrella term, and underneath that umbrella we have different headings. One of them is the natural / manipulated natural aspect, where they take the fungus and insert the secondary genetic cluster, and that's how we have all of these different things under the Morgellons heading. And then we have the artificial materials that are being also expelled from the human body in multiple ways. And these are the crystal hexagons and the fibers and all of these different complex fluids, and even up to the point of synthetic tissue, which Morgellons sufferers will tell you when they have these lesions and the skin forms over it. It's not a natural film, it's not a natural skin. It's a pseudo scab, as I refer to it, and it's created from something that is synthetic, that is nano-based, self-replicating, and probably has to do with the super soldier program. So when we're talking about DARPA, we're talking about the Defense Agency Research Project. That's what we're talking about. This is all man-made material. We are talking about bioweapons testing. We are talking about transhumanism, the singularity, the man-machine interface, and the side effect of these projects, which happens to be the fallout on the human population around the globe. Thank you.